So the media prematurely gave Donald Trump credit for bringing peace to the Middle East. And folks, I'm not here to be a pessimist, and I'm not here to downplay a good thing. I'm really not. I truly am glad to see the hostages come home. I'm glad to see them released and reunited with their families. That was a very emotional videos to watch, and I in no way want to downplay that at all. I'm truly glad that they made it. I'm glad they're alive, and really glad to see them reunited with their families. But when I saw the mainstream media going off on this tirade about Donald Trump bringing peace to the Middle East, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I know the difference between a ceasefire and a peace deal. And no sooner than the ceasefire was made, both sides are already accusing the other side of breaking that. And so I think it's going to be very interesting going forward to see what actually comes of this. But I just feel like that this is everything that is wrong with the mainstream media. And to anyone out there who honestly thinks that the mainstream media is Donald Trump's enemy, that's all bullshit, okay? Donald Trump uses the mainstream media the same way that on wrestling you have the heel and the villain. They work together. A lot of them are really good friends behind the scenes. A lot of them sit and come up with the storylines and the angles, and they work it out way in advance before they get there, and then they put on the show for everybody else. And I really believe that that's the way it is with Donald Trump and the mainstream media. He calls them the fake news. He calls them his nemesis. He says they're all out to get him, but then they go out there and they just start prematurely saying, oh, he's brought peace to the Middle East, like he deserves all the credit in the world. And again, I'm not trying to downplay anything good that happened. I'm really not. But I do not trust Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't trust anything that them two puts forward. I don't trust anything that them two says. So all I can say is that I hope it all works out in the end, but I have no faith whatsoever in Donald Trump and in Netanyahu. Now, Donald Trump is, I'm sure, going to be saying, oh, I need the Nobel Peace Prize for this moment. But again, I don't think you can have the Nobel Peace Prize when you're zip-tying children in your own country. When you have troops in the street, when you're shooting down boats in Venezuela, when you're sending troops all over the country, when you're relabeling the Department of Defense as the Department of War, I just don't see how you can then turn in the same breath and say that you deserve a peace prize. When you constantly refer to your political opponents as radical left lunatics, when you constantly try to accuse anyone of protesting as being a domestic terrorist, and when you're the first country to get put, this is the first time that we've ever been on a human rights watch list because of Donald Trump and his administration. Oh, and by the way, he's going to be sending 200 troops to Israel. So, again, I'm not trying to downplay anything, but I just don't really have a whole lot of faith in Donald Trump. And so I'm going to be reading you this article here from the Associated Press, and we'll go from there. But I do appreciate y'all so much for your support here on the channel. If you haven't already, be sure and hit that subscribe button as we cruise toward 1 million subscribers. But this is what the Associated Press is saying here. The U.S. is sending about 200 troops to Israel to help support and monitor the Gaza ceasefire deal. So, the United States is sending about 200 troops to Israel to help support and monitor the ceasefire deal in Gaza as part of a team that includes partner nations, non-governmental organizations, and private sector players, U.S. officials said Thursday. The officials who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss details that were not authorized to release said U.S. Central Command is going to reestablish civil-military coordination center in Israel that will help facilitate and flow of humanitarian aid as well as logistical and security assistance in the territory racked by 2 years of war. The remarks provide some of the first details on how the ceasefire deal would be monitored by the U.S. and that the U.S. military would have a role in that effort. After Israel and Hamas agreed to a first phase of the Trump administration plan to halt fighting, a litany of questions remain on the next steps, including Hamas's disarmament, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and a future government in the territory. One of the officials said the new team will help monitor implementation of ceasefire agreement and the transition of civil government in Gaza. The coordination will be staffed by about 200 U.S. service members who have expertise in transportation, planning, security, logistics, and engineering, and the official who noted that no American troops will be sent into Gaza. Folks, I would like to talk to you about Chapter. Medicare is supposed to benefit seniors, but it can be so confusing. And with many agents chasing commissions instead of caring about folks, millions of seniors end up on plans that aren't right for them every year, paying too much or not getting the care that they need. And that's just wrong. Listen, Medicare annual enrollment runs from October 15th through December 7th. Even if you like your current Medicare plan, it's critical to look at 2026 plans or you risk losing coverage you need. That's because plans change every year and some just disappear. That's why I want you to know about Chapter. They're the only advisors that check every plan nationwide to make sure you get one that works best for you. Their help is free and they can review your options in under 20 minutes. If you're on the right plan, they'll tell you. If not, they'll help you switch. By doing this, they've saved people an average of $1,100 a year. So call Chapter today. Get it done fast and rest easy. You can reach them at 314-732-0423. A second official said that troops would be drawn from the U.S. Central Command, which had troops stationed in the Middle East as well as other parts of the globe. That official added that the troops have already begun arriving and will continue to travel the region over the weekend to begin planning on the efforts and to establish the center. Two other senior U.S. officials who spoke to reporters on the condition because they were not authorized to publicly discuss internal deliberations offered more details about forces from other countries and what the U.S. troops would be doing. Now, members of the armed forces of Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the United States or United Arab Emirates are expected to be embedded with a team of 200 U.S. troops, according to officials. The American service members will integrate the multinational force and coordinate with Israeli Defense Forces. The exact location of where U.S. troops will be positioned is something they will be working on to determine Friday. Donald Trump, meanwhile, highlighted Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of the U.S. Central Command, during a cabinet meeting at the White House on Thursday, saying that he would work alongside Special Envoy Stephen Witkoff, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Cooper, I hear, has been fantastic, Trump said. So Cooper joined the U.S. side of the talks in Egypt this week, according to one U.S. official. He helped reassure the Arab countries at a negotiating table that would put a strong guarantee behind its commitments. A reassurance of Arab countries then passed along to Hamas. In show of the readiness, Cooper told them he could have a command post up and running within 2.5 weeks. A breakthrough deal to pause the war in Gaza was reached Wednesday after the United States and mediators in the region pressured both Israel and Hamas to end the fighting that has devastated the Gaza Strip, killed tens of thousands of Palestinians, sparked other conflicts, and isolated Israel. That push sealed an agreement on the first phase that would free the remaining living Israeli hostages within days in exchange for the release of hundreds of Palestinians imprisoned by Israel. So once again, I feel like we're getting a phase one, and the question will be, will there ever be a phase two? Folks, again, I really am glad to see that the hostages made it home, but I don't trust a man who talks about turning it into Trump Gaza and who shares AI videos of him and Netanyahu sitting on a strip. And one of the parts of the plan that he's put forward is that he would be the ruler of the whole thing, that he would be in charge of everything. So in other words, it would be a way for him to profit for everything. And for the folks that are giving him credit, you're bigger people than me, because I can't give him any credit. Again, I'm glad the hostages made it home. I'm glad that this worked and went through on this end. But when it comes to Donald Trump and Netanyahu, I can't even say I'm sorry for saying this. I just absolutely have no faith. And I also have no faith that Donald Trump will ever see heaven if there is one. This is probably one of the only things that he and I agrees with. He don't think he's going to make it either. Take a look.
Go ahead. You had talked a couple weeks ago, you were doing an interview, and you talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven, but
You know, I think one of the main reasons why that he can't ever see himself making it to heaven is because of what's in the Epstein files. Is because of what's been done, and he knows what's been done, and he's covering it up. Because the Bible does say that anyone who hurts one of the little ones, it would be better that a millstone be tied around their neck and then be cast to the bottom of the sea than to stand before Jesus in the day of judgment. So if Donald Trump ever stumbled across that verse, it definitely had to give him some chills. And again, we're still sitting here with the government shut down, and we're waiting on Adelita Grijalva to be sworn in so she can be the 218th vote to release the Epstein files, and they're kicking and screaming every step of the way against that. And that's why that it's like, you know what? I really want to see peace all over the world. I want to see peace in the Middle East. I want to see peace all over the world, and I'll be the first one to give Donald Trump credit if he's the one that actually pulls it off. But I just can't have a whole lot of faith in any of this at the moment because we've seen so many times what has happened. When we get phase one from a Trump administration, we never get phase two. What we get is political theater, and I just take offense at that. I take offense at the political theater that's put out there and the mainstream media just going to bat and making this guy the hero in the story before the story is even complete. I just think it's very important that we stay focused and report things the way that they're really happening and not jumping the gun and saying, oh yeah, by the way, he brought peace and I give him a prize. To me, you don't get peace. You don't get a peace prize until you have brought peace within your own country. And there is so much going on within the United States that he just continues to fan the flames. No matter what, he will never be a peacemaker in my eyes.